just exposing yourself to challenge and failure and then continuing to turn up. Like the more you do it, like you're exercising a muscle, and that muscle is the ability to withstand a challenging job. Like every time you do it, you get better at it, and it looks like you can keep smiling through it and you're not bursting into tears in the fetal position at the end of it. You know, like you're just like, oh, I know those jobs. They're the hard ones. Here I am again at another hard one. Like the more you do, the better you are at doing it. And that's honestly where you make a living. You don't make a living in the easy ones. You make a living by being the person who can survive the hard ones.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
What a treat we have for today's episode. And my goodness, I don't know where to start. We chatted about everything, life. It was a great and beautiful chat. Claire was very generous and gave me some amazing advice before we started, which was very kind of her, and it speaks volumes about her. Lots of laughs were shared, and I loved having this chat with Claire in person. It was just fantastic. I don't even have the vocabulary to describe how awesome Claire is, so I'll let our conversation do the talking. So let's get into it and officially introduce Claire to the podcast. Claire Hooper is a stand-up comedian, writer, author, presenter, and actor. Her 2006 show, O, earned her both a critical acclaim and a nomination for the Melbourne Comedy Festival's Best Newcomer Award. Claire is a born narrator who has an incredibly sharp mind and wit. She's gone on to regularly perform at festivals and comedy rooms all over Australia. For 4 years, Claire shared a set with Paul McDermott and Mikey Robbins on the iconic Australian comedy show Good News Week as team captain. Over the last decade, Claire has audience spellbound with her solo shows performed across the country. Claire even hosted the Great Australian Bake Off for Foxtel's Lifestyle channel for 5 seasons, which is crazy. This theme carried through to Claire's brilliant solo shows Biscuits in 2020 and Tea in 2022. A regular on screen, Claire can be seen co-hosting Channel 10's The Project, as well as appearances on ABC's Question Everything, Spicks and Specs, SBS Celebrity Letters and Numbers, Rove Live, and Channel 10's Would I Lie to You. In what is possibly Claire's proudest achievement to date, her debut children's book, Princess Benjamina Has a Very Cheeky Bum, was released in 2021. Claire has loved sharing the joy of this book with kids all across the country. Also, Claire has a bunch of shows out, and in particular, if you're in Melbourne for the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, go check Claire out. She's absolutely hilarious. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, such as on-screen perfection, being in the business for 20 years, gratitude, success, confidence, fear and social media, Claire's time on the Great Australian Bake Off, Edinburgh and life-changing gigs, our love of Will Anderson, moving forward, plus plenty more.
Before we get into this chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I find it adds a new element and dynamic to these chats. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out every Monday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, with the video to follow the following day. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's epic episode. So, I was actually going to start with the garden process, but maybe we should get this out of the park. And you mentioned your tooth. I'd love to know what happened and how you're feeling about it.
I'm missing a tooth in the bottom row.
And I didn't notice, and we spent 20 minutes together.
We've just hung out for ages, and
Yep.
you didn't notice, which is great. So yeah, but it is a weird thing because I turned up to film something on the weekend, some little garden videos I've been doing, and I hadn't given them the heads up. So I just basically went ahead with heavy duty orthodontic work without like running it by anybody who was, who's like basically employers. And I felt really bad. That's not my usual style. My usual style will be to put it off for another 10 years or, or beg and apologise and offer to only do it for half the fee. And, I was quite proud of myself for being like, just turn up. It'll be too late for them to do anything about it.
I'm very impressed.
Just be better at your job. Just be a bit better at your job than usual to make up for it. And anyway, but to backtrack, 5 years ago, my dentist was like, you need orthodontic work. And I have put it off for a number of reasons. And obviously it's a weird one to fit in around filming because if you're meant to wear an aligner for 22 hours a day, you can't be doing a 14-hour filming day on something like Bake Off. So the timing had to be right. But even bigger for me was that I just believed somebody should be repping for crooked teeth on TV. We can't all be perfect, right?
Or British, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. You had to make the joke about British teeth, but yeah, I was like, look, I've had a career on TV with slightly crooked teeth. Surely that's good. Like I pushed back against the idea of on-screen perfection a little bit. I'm like, then we just need a little bit more rough around the edges on screen. And whenever I see it, my heart sings. I know not everyone. Some people actually just want to look at pretty people, and that's fine too. Anyway, so I pushed back for that reason as well. You reckon? So I don't know, but there's plenty of TV. That's hot people.
I agree. Like being on TV, like most people are definitely way better looking than the average person. But there's also a lot of stuff that goes in, like makeup, for example, and
yes,
there's a whole bunch of other factors. I'm a big proponent of getting I don't like the rating system, but 5s or lower gives me a better chance. No, I'm confident in myself. But I fully agree. But I do find it really interesting, with the teeth, you're a performer, and we were sort of talking about this before. That could also be a little bit, you please correct me if I'm wrong, maybe insecurities or stuff could come through because people are used to you looking a certain way, which is weird. And
yeah, that's right. So I might be cockily saying, I'm repping for bad teeth, but I still don't necessarily want a gap on screen. So anyway, I've started a million sentences. Basically turned up on the weekend and it did not really impact filming that much. And as you said, you didn't even notice that it was missing.
And I wasn't being polite. I want to make that very clear. We spent a lot of time looking at each other and discussing stuff. Didn't notice, and I wouldn't care either.
No, I know you wouldn't care. Yeah. You're a good guy. Anyway, the reason I finally succumbed was that my dentist was right. I was I've got a cross bite. I've got, if I bite down in a natural position, only 2 teeth touch and they're in the wrong position. It's the top one behind the bottom one. And, I was like, yeah, okay, it has actually gotten bad for my bite. And so I made a deal with the orthodontist. I was like, we'll straighten the bottom row out. We'll fix this up. In exchange, may I have my childhood gap back in the front too?
You made that deal.
Yeah, and he was like, I expected some pushback. I thought I was going to have to sell the idea. And he didn't even look up. He just wrote it on his, he just wrote it down. He was like, yep, and 0.3 mil, okay. And I'm like, yep, I guess.
So maybe it's more common.
Maybe people are asking for gaps, but I had one when I was a kid, and I've got 2 kids, and they've both got a front tooth gap, and I was like, I used to have one of them. How dare they get rid of it? So now I'm getting this tiny little gap back in my front teeth in exchange for straightening everything else, which somehow, I don't know if this is healthy or not, but that's what I've gone for.
I like that you bartered with your dentist. You don't hear about those stories every day.
Yeah.
Very unique. I had 5 wisdom teeth.
Sorry, how do you have fun?
I know. I'm just.
I told you were wise. Yeah. I said that before we started.
You are correct, but it was very weird, and everyone. Oops, sorry, everyone. When we went to get them out because they were coming through, he's like, you've got 5 wisdom teeth. And I'm like, no, I had no idea. And he goes, yeah, like one in like God knows how many people have this. I was like, I'm a freak. And my mom's like, you are. And no, she was very kind. But he was bargaining with us. He's like, I don't remember the numbers. He's like, for 1 wisdom teeth, it's $1,000 to remove. But for you, I'll do a special price and just give you $4,000 and we get the 5th one free. And it was such a weird conversation that we're sort of like haggling, or he's giving me like a free. If you're there, you're there. Like, I didn't think they would pay per wisdom teeth.
I mean, I reckon you could have got him down to 3 for 5.
I look back at that every day and like, he got me. But isn't it interesting going on set where you said a few keywords and every performer, including me, I don't even know if I'm a performer, but we think we've got this job and we feel like we need to be a certain way. And then like for something which to me is small, but obviously each individual will experience it in a certain way, that there was like even the thoughts of we'll only get half the price, or I'll need to let them know. I always find that so interesting, but I'm also so proud of you because it's obviously been a journey, because like pretty much everyone would be like, oh, I'm not going to go to set, I'm not going to do anything. But then for you to just go in there and do your thing, like it didn't matter. Please expand. Yep, you're giving me a look.
Yeah, it's I guess, it's a tricky one because it does feel. I mean, you want to over deliver, like that's the best feeling at the end of a job. So if you know that you're turning up with a potential disappointment on your hands, right?
Yep.
Then it feels kind of mortifying.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I did, that's why I was reasoning with myself. I'm like, but if I'm better in every other way, then I can make up for it. To be fair, I don't know that I was better in every other way. I think I just did my normal good job.
Great.
Yeah, I do a good job.
Yeah.
How do I do a good job? I turn up on time and I'm polite to people and I remember my lines.
Underrated.
It's big because it really it shortens the day. If you can, like if you can rap early, everybody loves you.
Yep.
And sometimes you can't because there's a lot of planes overhead, or there's been like a massive, like the lighting isn't right, and everybody like the clouds keep parting and then coming together, and then you keep changing. You're waiting for the cloud to pass so the exposure's the same as the previous. There are things out of your control.
Yep.
But if you know your lines and you make it rap early,
you are a god.
Then you've made friends.
And also added being a nice person, saying hi to people. For some reason, I don't even know why I need to feel the need to say like that's what we should do. But especially like all the Americans, like here in Hollywood, that's not as common as you'd think.
Saying hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also think of the pressures of when you're actually a proper big star. Man, I know
we're a big star.
Okay, no, I'm not a big star. I'm different. I'm a worker bee. I am not a star. And when you look at somebody that really genuinely, if they go out, they're photographed and put in a mag. When it's somebody who genuinely has to carry the weight of their own brand every minute of the day.
Yeah, that's
maybe you can't say hello to everyone.
I accept that. Yeah.
But it is interesting, isn't it? Politeness. You just feel like it's a basic courtesy. It's just what humans do. And then I went through a regional Macca's drive-through.
This is so exciting.
Recently.
Yeah.
I've written a Macca's drive-through bit into my show, and I wanted to not say Macca's. Like if you're on the ABC radio, you don't disclose the brand names. But then I'm like, it has to be Macca's for it to resonate. Yep. Anyway, moving on. I went through one in regional Australia because on a road trip with a family, you've got to go through once.
Yep. It's the law.
And when we got our food, I said, thanks so much. What do you say, girls? And my kids yelled, thank you. And the girl said, oh, you are the nicest people we've had all day. And I was like, I'm sorry, we said thank you.
That's it.
Like, that's it.
The bare minute. Oh, wow.
I was horrified for her. I'm sorry, but that is the best your entire day has been.
That's cooked.
Isn't it?
Didn't you just want to hug her?
Yeah, I wanted to get, it's just, yeah. look, I'll meet you in the wait for the fillet of fish lane. Come on, I'll pull over. You come out. Let's have a hug. And also, what are your career plans? Because we got to get you out of here.
Here's my number. I can sort you out.
Oh, my goodness.
That is the saddest and also the funniest thing I've ever heard. Just saying hi. What was the ride back? Were you with your husband at the time? Was that
No, he wasn't even with me. He was back at the little Airbnb.
That would have been a long, there would have been a lot of thoughts.
To think about.
You would be reevaluating your life.
What's wrong with people? Just say thank you.
Oh, that's going to be the theme of the podcast. That's crazy. Just while I'm thinking about this, from the side of when you were going to do your show and there was the worry around the teeth, which I want to emphasize, every single person in the world would react probably way worse, though you reacted very well, but there would be a lot of these thoughts and stuff. I would feel as a comedian that you would be more equipped for this. You've been doing this for 20 plus years, I reckon.
Yeah, I'm just coming up to my 20-year stand-up anniversary.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
And you're a fantastic comedian. I've seen you over the years. Every comedian has bombs and horrible gigs. I heard about your worst gig at the time. And I feel like, I don't want to give you what the moral of the story is, but I feel like when you've gone through things like that, where it's just not a good situation, that you're way more equipped to deal with these other things.
Right, yeah. The practice, getting the fails under your belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means everything. You just, with every challenging gig, there comes a little more perspective.
Ooh.
Because you keep walking away alive, and so yes, absolutely. The horror shows mean that I guess I go in to something like the filming on the weekend knowing that these aren't the ideal circumstances, but also that probably we will all walk away alive, and if we don't, it won't be because of my teeth.
Yes, that's a great moral. But still, it's even, look, a lot of people, how do I say this? Doing stand-up for 20 years, there's this tiniest bracket of people in the world. And in Australia, it's an even harder industry in my perspective to get to the top, which you have. It doesn't happen. You have to have something within you to keep going. Because even when you're first starting and you're not getting laughs, I know you shined very early on, but there's periods, it doesn't matter how good or bad one is. There's periods of no laughs, bombs, the self-confidence would be destroyed. People could say horrible things, and I have one which I found funny because you laughed at it, which we'll bring up maybe in a moment, that not many comedians survive and thrive. They give up after a certain while, but you've been able to continue, which I find so rare. So there must be something within you that's either very confident or very knowing. I know that we all have battles with confidence, but I'm just wondering how, through all of the highs, and you had way more highs than lows, how you've been able to get to this point and be here for 20 years.
God, I don't know if I even think of it as a victory or a success story, still being here after 20 years. I mean, I just said to my husband when I kind of put the timings together recently, I was like, it's going to be 20 years.
That's so cool.
I should give up. It's why are you going to keep doing the same thing? What you want next year to be the same as this year, and then the year after that to be the same again. What are you doing? Go do something different.
Yeah.
I think the reason I'm still in it after 20 years is because I keep thinking I haven't quite got it yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But there must be, and I know you're a very humble, kind lady, there must be a part of you that knows that you're actually good at this, deep down.
Oh, there are things that I know I'm good at.
Yep.
But I also know, I've got a WhatsApp group chat with 3 other comedian mates, which is really useful. It's sort of hey, another punchline that's this, but not quite as strong. Or oh, you can't guess what this promoter said to me. Have you ever had this problem with this guy in Perth? Or you know what I mean? So it's just a really, really good little group chat. I am absolutely the least successful out of the people in my WhatsApp group chat. They've all got a special. and I don't have a special, and they. Not that. I mean, there are some obvious measures of success. There are things like, have you got awards? Have you got specials? Have you done Montreal? Have I got awards?
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
Nah, I haven't.
You have.
And
I'll tell you afterwards.
okay, I have clearly forgotten. Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to. I don't think I've got a great deal of status in the industry or a great deal of leverage. You know, like I'm not one of those comedians that anyone's like, hey, can you please write us a show? I'm like a really good turn up. I kind of almost treat it as a service. It's like, all right, here's a gig. I'm going to turn up and I'm going to do the best job for the group of people who've paid the money. But I just feel, so I really feel like I feel like the Jim's mowing of comedy. And I don't feel like I'm on lists of people's like, you know who you should see. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, first of all, your mindset is amazing, being of service and like respecting the transaction, because people in all industries, like I used to be an accountant, like not that I was there long enough, but when you do something for a long time, you can kind of be like, it's just money, who cares, I'm going to get that. But you still got that after like this long, which is very impressive. Kudos to you. But also from the side, like I had a few examples on the podcast where people like thought they'd be tapped on the back and be like, come to Hollywood, mate. Like we need you. That's like 3 people in Australia. Like it doesn't exist. It's like Hugh Jackman probably. I can't think of anyone, but maybe like Will Anderson's had that and he's been on the podcast.
Yeah, a good example is like lovely Celia Piccola and Luke McGregor. You know, for example, they were sort of approached like, got any ideas? Got some TV shows you could write? And they're like, sure. And eventually put Rose Haven out. You know, like so there definitely is that. You know, like if you get the heat at Melbourne Comedy Festival. As in people are like, how about this unique, extraordinary voice? And then people will be like, where can we use them? Let's put them in a thing and you know what I mean? And I feel like I feel like extreme gratitude for being able to earn a living in this industry, but I'm realistic about the fact that apart from the very start of my career, I've never really been on fire. Like I'm not on hot lists. Do you know what I mean? I'm just, anyway, cool. Back off from this.
No. I think you're very humble, and like from an outside perspective, like I have a pretty good idea of your career. I'm not your manager or anything, and you know I think that I've seen on all industries. I actually think that you're in the top tier bracket, but obviously, like if you've got like friends that might appear to be more successful, but also people have heard your credits at this. You don't go on.
Well, I'm also going to say, like they deserve it. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
There's no sense of like how dare they be. No. I'm like.
But you
raps for them. There's
a few things I want to like kind of tie in, like what does on fire mean? But also you've been able to like pivot and do so many different things. Like even like Good News Week, the Great Australian Bake Off. That's like a huge gig. Like not many people.
It was so good.
Oh, amazing!
It was so good.
You've done all of these things that aren't inverted commas just a stand-up comedian. You've been able to pivot and do certain things. To me, that's the peak of the Australian industry, is being able to do these things.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. I've been really, okay.
And yes. I'm not saying that to make you feel good. It's just reality.
No, you're absolutely right. That is a really fair, and that's one of my favourite things about my job, is that if you can do stand-up, you get these other really interesting opportunities as well, crazy. And they're so much fun. Doing, you know, like you actually have spoken to my replacement on the Great Australian Bake Off.
I was going to ask you about that.
So I am no longer a host on that, but 5 seasons of anything is incredible, and I had the best fun time.
You're actually friends with Cal was since the previous podcast. Yeah, I know.
It's an interesting
dynamic. So I had the most fun. Oh, sorry. How's your day been? No. Actually, do you want to talk about that? Because
it was such a wild experience, and sometimes one of the hardest things, you know, like this industry, your failures are more public, and I don't see it as a failure. It really was. I didn't expect to get season 5. So when that came up after an 18-month break, it was a real surprise and great. All right, that's fun. And to be honest, I nearly didn't say yes to season 4. Like, I find it...
Why is that? If you...
I guess I'd had some challenges. I think season 3 had just been a really hard one for me because boohoo, I don't love to be overexposed. So I was doing promo for Bake Off at the same time as promo for the Pineapple Project and promo for Melbourne Comedy Festival.
Yep.
And I was talking about myself all the time and starting to feel just like disgusting. And I think that so when season 4 came along, I was like, I just don't belong here. I'm done. I don't like all the socials posting that you have to do, like, because I don't thrive in that environment either. It's a really weird thing that when you put me on stage or in a, or at the Bake Off, in front of the 12 bakers and I'm talking to them, I just love that energy. But if the idea of communicating with thousands of faceless people I'm so deeply uncomfortable with it. So
can I add to that?
Yeah,
Sorry for
please.
interjecting. I feel the same way. Like, you're good at your craft. Like, I want to just do my podcast and not really be on social media, for example.
yeah.
But there's this other element which isn't part of, like, to me, being a stand-up comedian. I know, like, it is, like, the self-promotion. I find that very hard as well.
For some people, it's a really happy part of their job. They're just made for it.
Yeah, I see it, which is not the right way to see it, is, I'm doing the podcast, I do screenwriting, that's what I do. But then there's this other side which you definitely need, but it comes in and it's almost like, it's like weird. Like, from an accounting perspective, you spend like 10, 15 years building away being the best accountant. And then in that last year from being partner, you now all of a sudden have to have social skills and you have to be a salesperson. Yeah. But they don't teach you the sales stuff for those 10, 15 years. It's very bizarre to me. But anyway, I cut you off.
No, you were right to. And now so there was this, there was a big promo element of Bake Off. So I really completely understand it, but I was having a little bit of I guess I've returned to this every now and then. I'm like, well, this is a vital part of the job. Promotion, socials, vital part of the job. And it's so bad for me that I don't think I belong in this job anymore. I've had a lot of fun as a comedian and a TV presenter, but I think it's time to wrap up. So I've had that thought a few times and kind of gone through that crisis. Like, can I legitimately do this job if one part of it is so bad for me?
Is it a sense of self? What is it?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just one of the things that I've got the worst anxiety around, and I don't process, you're getting DM'd about, like, there's a lot to answer in DMs, and I like to be thorough and courteous to everyone, but it's like impossible there's too much.
Yeah.
So you can't do that job properly.
Yep. Are you expected, like, to engage with people and all that stuff?
I don't know. And, like, people being like, I have this extremely worthy charity. Can you do it? And it's like,
Gotcha.
Well, that's reason. Yes, that's, of course you would want that, but I can't do all the thing. And and then also, and if you get the slightest bit of weirdness or cruelty, right? Yeah. It's like, really, I just don't know how to process it. So I don't hold on to the good things. I just hold on to the bad things. And I don't want my head full of the words of somebody I've never met when I'm actually sitting in the lounge room with my children who I love and who I care about.
Yeah, that's all that matters, is your family and your close friends.
Yeah, but you're not seeing them because you've got an argument going on in your head with somebody that you genuinely never met and should not value the opinion of necessarily. So anyway.
We're all humans. That all happens. We let the weight of random people. And also, most people that give advice when they don't know you, in my experience, it doesn't mean we can't take advice, but I would not be taking advice off an Instagram message, to everyone. But it's always through one's bias and their insecurities of how they see the world. Whether it's good advice or not, it's just very hard to take
on face value. I do it. I'm not having it.
It's so
I do
tricky.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
just, yeah.
I'm at a point with my management where because they insist socials are important, we have got an arrangement where one of the greatest people in the world, Sarah, I just feed her a little bit of content and she posts it and she does everything. And so
great.
it is inauthentic. It's not what socials should be, but that is the only version that works for me.
It's not really inauthentic, and you also have posted that it's repped and it's still you. It's not, it would be
Yeah, if she was actually writing.
well,
like
she was
choosing
writing
the
to all
photos
the
and writing
DMs and
yeah.
being like, hey, that's so great, babe, blah, 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 you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would change the language on that because
Well, yeah, that's right. I'm not lying about it, but I still feel like that's not. I mean, like, and that's not genuine engagement with people. The way, I mean, if you're going to do it properly, that's not properly. Anyway, we have gone a long way from where this question started, which is, I was surprised to get season 5 of Bake Off. Loved it, but when we were on season 5, I knew Maggie Beer wasn't coming back.
Oh,
And yeah, she was quite definite about the fact that this was definitely her last season. She doesn't want to be away from her home in the Barossa for so long, and she finds the days long and hard.
Yeah.
She doesn't like to eat that much sugar, so she goes to bed with sugar headaches from testing all the cakes. It is a hard job for her. She wasn't interested in coming back.
yep.
So I knew she wasn't coming back. So if I were the producer, would absolutely use it as an opportunity to recast everyone.
Yep.
And I'm really trying to backpat here, but I was having conversations with the producers suggesting new host teams that were more diverse, because we'd got to a point where we were casting bakers to bake on the show who were really diverse, and then ultimately they're bringing their cultural offerings up to the judging table and 4 white people are standing there going, oh, I haven't tasted this before, how interesting. It's like, it's on the nose, it's not okay.
Yeah. Well, there's so much diversity in food, especially.
Right?
Yeah.
So yuck, don't have 4 white people judging. I mean, not that I was a judge, but I'm still standing there next to the 2 white judges.
Yeah.
So it had to happen. It had to have a recast. So I was perfectly at ease with that. But then there's this strange business of it actually happening and people being worried for you about it. And also all this interesting, so the network was feeding us back, look, you're still on the table. And I'm like, I don't think I am. And it'd actually be better if you just tore the Band-Aid off. But, so the conversation, we just kept getting told, don't worry, it might not be you. But then, of course, I've got one of my best friends screen testing for it and going to callbacks. And I'm like, oh, it's all just very mucky. I'm so glad it happened with Cal.
Yep.
Because she's dear to me and we just stayed very open and honest about the process with each other.
It has nothing to do with her.
It's not. She deserves it. She wasn't available for the auditions first time round. She might have got it first time round if she was.
Good riddance.
She loves the show. You know what? It's great.
Yeah.
She's so perfect for it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the final 4 was not 4 white people, and it made me really happy.
Yeah. I really like your perspective on that, and I'm glad that although that there's still, doing a show for 5 seasons,
it's amazing.
And this was a very big show by Australian standards as well. And it also gave that diversity in terms of your ability to show a side of yourself as well, which is really awesome. And you could tell. I've watched little bits here and there, but you enjoyed it. It seemed like
loved it.
Yeah,
I loved the actual making of it and the silly bits. I loved making Mel Buttle laugh because I find her one of the funniest people in the world.
Yeah.
So if I can make her laugh, it's the greatest day. She's so much fun to be around.
I need a more positive word for jealous, because it's not jealous, but that's why I love doing the podcast. That's why I love the idea of screenwriting, is the collaboration and making someone laugh and working with them. That, you can't put a price on that. You know what I mean? It's so exciting. But also what's so interesting about this dynamic is that most people, it's very weird. This is nothing to do with you, but a lot of people will be like, I did 3 seasons of this show, and then they'll be like, I can't believe I didn't get a 4th. Whereas a lot of other people are like, please, can I get one season? And it's so interesting that when a show ends, maybe not necessarily on our terms, I'm not saying this is what you're doing, we see it a little bit differently. But from an outside perspective, getting like more than a season is like insane. And I'm kind of semi-scared because I've got so many scripts that I'm trying to do. Like I want 5 seasons, I want 6 seasons. But at the end of the day, just getting something made and working with good people is a luxury, as you would definitely know.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, for me, no hard feelings at all about letting it go. Just this slightly icky feeling of being treated. What I realised is that I felt like I was being treated like talent rather than just
a human.
Just a friend. You know, so that just that sense of being kept on hold, which makes sense from a producer's point of view, because it's like, well, what if the new cast falls through and we need these people? We better not have severed ties. Or I don't know. You know, I don't know what it is, but I felt really patronised in the process, and it made it feel. So it just made it. I guess it gets grating after a while having other people worried about whether you're okay about what's happening.
Yeah,
because I think I was. Am I protesting too much? I think I was really comfortable with the process. But the worst bit about it was being treated as though you might not be.
Yes, I feel exactly what you're saying, and I think everyone else will. And plus, you had so much fun and you really enjoyed it. With any process, it's just, this is just me selfishly speaking. Like, if I don't get something, that's okay. But if I don't feel like I've been communicated in a way where, you know, we've had this relationship before, and then money, I'm not alluding to what they're doing, I'm just saying as a high picture. There's like fears. And I don't do this all the time, but when the fears come in, it can impact one's communication. And so on their end, it's very mature of you to say, oh, they're trying to get a different cast, want more diverse voices, which is great, especially for food, because regardless, even if someone's like white, I don't care if they're white, I know that I'm white, the diversity in food, like maybe the white person's actually Moroccan, but do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
It's food diversity is a show like that. It's so great. And so for you to be able to see that, I think that's really awesome. But, you know, there's money, there's what are we going to do if this doesn't go ahead? And people genuinely feel like uncomfortable with having these conversations. And it is uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be. And then when it kind of goes on a little bit and then you're hearing things from the outset, it makes it worse. I understand both points. I'm on your team, Team Claire. It's just weird that it happens in a way like this because it doesn't, you understand the dynamic of TV. It's not necessarily fair in inverted commas and money speaks, but we all, at like every single human just wants to be spoken to like as a human. Like if we're explained.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, is that what it is? I mean, the feeling of you want respect and you feel slightly disrespected. But anyway, I understand it's really it's a really tricky, it's a whole tricky business because it's basically a breakup. But I just would have liked it to be done neat and tidy. When I already knew it was over, can we just all be talking about it like it's over?
Yeah, not like the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, what was the mourning process like? Because we talk about boyfriend, girlfriend traditionally. We don't talk about breakups of jobs and projects, and I think that's very empowering to hear.
I don't think there was much of a mourning process. It probably helps, you know, like as a stand-up as well. Every lineup's different. So you're just like, you know, like I might say to Cal, oh, you're emceeing at the ESPY. Have fun. I did that 2 weeks ago. And so it's just like, you know, like, can you please say hi to Shep on sound? I love him. I miss him. And, you know, like, have fun. And also watch out for the portaloos. You know what I mean? Like as in maybe the fact that as stand-ups we just have to have fun when we're there and then know that somebody else is going to have fun with it next time. Maybe that's trained us to just pass gigs on a bit more.
Well, I think
comfortably because I didn't feel mourning so much as soon as I was allowed to know it was Cal, I could start talking to her about it.
That you're very mature, and I think that's very emotionally like sound, if that's the right word. And I think that what I've noticed through these high caliber people like yourself and the ones that you are. You've
Okay,
got
good,
integrity. Yeah. And also there's the integrity side, like just using Will Anderson, for example, and this is the same line as you. There's a genuine like care of wanting to help support other people. And so in other industries, and I used to be this person, maybe I am to some level, I hope I'm not anymore, that when we lose something, and even like a friend might get it, this is many years ago, you might not necessarily be happy for them. We've all gone through like moments like that. But you have you said it 100 times that you was like, thank God Cal got it, that's amazing. But then even what you just said before that, like supporting each other through other gigs, that's like a special type of person, because in my mind, there's many different ways to succeed. But when you've got people, like you said, you've got like a few people you can speak to and you genuinely want them to succeed, it works both ways. Not that I'm saying just get friends so you can be successful with them. You breed this like mindset of like thriving together, which to me, that's the best type of success. So even on the Will Anderson like example, which you're doing this as well, but just actually from the Will side, he like encourages and helps bring people up the ropes, and he has this really beautiful...
Will hasn't been in the biz much longer than me, but he is a massive part of my success.
Oh.
Before I was represented, we have the same management,
Token.
Will and I, Token.
Yep.
But before I was with them, I took a solo show to Edinburgh.
Yes.
And I had the prestigious midnight slot, and he was performing. He was doing a 9:30 or a 10:30. I can't even remember. He was doing a late night show, and he didn't know who I was or anything. Bless him. I wonder if he knew me through, like I'd maybe supported Tripod in WA or something. Like I'd kind of met a few people in the.
He knew
the point is, in the first few nights, he came to my show at midnight, if you don't mind, and then he was telling his enormous audiences, there's a great show around the corner at midnight, go when you leave my show, go and buy a ticket. And then I have absolutely no doubt that he also mentioned my name to his management, because they started noticing who I was. I think I was sort of vaguely on their radar already. But I know that kind of when an act like that advocates for you, it's enormous. So he's a huge part of me getting started in the industry and succeeding in a midnight spot, which should not be possible.
And you're also new.
And I see him do that still. He's doing his show Question Everything, and he is very, very actively making sure on a panel of 3, somebody is someone who hasn't got a lot of TV credits yet but shows promise. He's doing workshops with those people, like as in they are making their day longer to get new comedians in doing workshops so that he can genuinely find new talent, and he's making sure those voices are like not just the usual. Like he's really he's doing it. He's doing the thing of taking the power that he has and using it to support others.
And we hear all these like dark Hollywood stories where it's about me and the power and using it not for good. And when I had the luxury of meeting him, I think we spoke almost 2 hours, and I was so impressed, as I am with everyone as well, but that mentality of I'm going to share my success with you and not take it away from you, but not enjoy it with you. So when like hearing like you're talking about Cal, your WhatsApp group, there's also, I've heard you talk about other people along the way. It seems like even though everyone has different journeys and different successes, it's like you kind of share it in a way. And I think that's so empowering, and it actually helps like future generations see that. Because, we see all these people, this is not a political statement, but we see a lot of people in power where whatever industry it is, and it's like this lack of abundance and how can I keep this power, not how I can share it. And there's enough to be shared around where we can thrive together. And that's what I'm hearing from you and also from Will as well.
Nice word, abundance.
Yeah, it's my favorite word.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
I say it all the time. I think people probably...
Okay, no, that's the first time in our conversation. So thank you for saying abundance.
Okay.
But I agree with it. I do reckon, I mean, like this idea that, people love good comedy. So why not make more of it? Like as in if there's only one good comedian, it's a terrible industry. Like the more the merrier. It just means there's more good shows, and we're dragging. So what, you know? So what if we're dragging more people off the couch more nights a week to watch comedy? Like the more the merrier.
I agree. And Will, I hope you're listening. Will could have
Will
the
won't
mindset.
listen to my episode. He's done advocating for me.
No,
I'm on my own.
You're also on his podcast, was a great listener, Willosophy. But just using Will as an example, not Will. Will, because he's like the guy in the industry or one of the guys, he could have the mentality of, and it still is in relation to you, could have the mentality of there's a small pool, I'm going to keep it small so I get every single gig. And that would be so tempting. And he would definitely, I don't want to speculate, there would be like thoughts of that, and maybe like management, I know that token's very like high integrity, it seems like. But those thoughts will come, and we all have these negative thoughts. There's nothing to be ashamed of whether we act on them or not. But to like still put that to the side and like want other people to succeed, I think that's where the reason why you've also got into a place like this. Doesn't mean you want like Joe Schmo who was an arsehole to you to succeed. It just means like you take a step back.
There's some people I don't want to succeed. but do you know what though? It's good for you to think that way, because ultimately you will be unseated as king one day. And then if instead of feeling jealous, you can feel like you were part of creating that path, then it makes, I don't know, it's like the I don't know, I guess I'm being really pragmatic about it now, but I'm just like, you are going to be happier and mentally healthier in the long run if you actually do feel some involvement in others' success. If you feel like you're part of someone's success, then them supplanting you doesn't hurt as badly. Because you're like, well, I might not have done my job well, but I did helping them real well.
I actually really like that. Like, for example, with this podcast, I had so much help getting it to where it is now. And even though look at this is weird, but a lot of people feel responsible for helping the podcast, and they are. It's not just me. And just even people like setting up the mics and stuff or teaching me how to do that. And they're very happy. And obviously I'm very happy because they've helped me, but I'm also happy that they're happy that they helped me. Or what, I know that sounds a bit weird, or one of my friends, I talk about him all the time, Darren Levy. He's a professional like YouTuber.
Yes.
And do you know him?
No, not personally. I just know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And so I love him, and he's just the greatest guy. And he will, he's just a great guy. I've spoken about him a lot. And even though his success is his success, I feel so proud of him when he hits these new heights, because at a very tiny, I'm not giving myself any credit that maybe I've influenced in a slightly different direction. I've been in a video, he blurred my face, but it's still got like 10 million views. Very proud about that.
Great.
There's just these small things where he's hitting new heights, and I'm just so happy for him.
Yeah, I wonder if it's easier to be to have this sense of generosity, abundance.
Great word.
When you do have enough, though. Like as in, Will Anderson has enough.
Yeah.
And your mate Darren has enough. And like for all of my talking down of my own career, I'm aware that I'm just so fortunate because it pays my mortgage and it feeds my kids, and I'm happy. So I got enough. So maybe, all these grandiose all these grandiose statements about how good it feels to help others, maybe that's actually only possible when you do have plenty. And so maybe we're asking too much of people at the outset of their career.
Oh, interesting. Within that, I'm going to be pondering about that. It's more of a mindset of like helping someone goes a long way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like give up your spot or do anything, but it's a mindset I've noticed from like people like you on the podcast. And it's obviously maybe like you didn't notice it at the start, but there's that mentality of still like sharing. And you might not need to necessarily act on it. I don't know what's right or wrong, but there's still like that inverted commas, like good person attitude, and just to be aware of it. Doesn't mean you need to sacrifice your career or your family or whatever. It's just knowing that it can be potentially a more enjoyable process when one is able to, within their means, to rise up together in a sense.
Yeah.
I hope Hope we save the world.
Makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not shaming anyone for any of those reasons.
Yeah, right.
But actually, okay, you brought up Edinburgh, and I think this is an unbelievable story.
Why is it unbelievable? Okay, yeah, cool.
It's actually
Everyone's doing it. Everyone's going to lose some money at Edinburgh.
okay. We're going to build up to this, and we'll talk about your comedy and how you found improv. But you correct me if I'm wrong. Edinburgh is extremely tough. A lot of Australians do it. I know that you had been doing comedy for a little while, but Edinburgh, not that long.
It would have been 3 years when I went to Edinburgh. So
Okay.
not too long.
Not too
a little while.
Not many people, regardless of who you are, will know you. There's a lot of cost. It's a different country. 12 o'clock, it's a hard slot. There's things like, okay, the stress, I want to just, from what I've seen, the stress of doing shows like this, because you have to, I don't know if you did this, but you're handing out pamphlets.
Yeah, stand out on the street and hand people flyers and hope that it works. Because how else is anyone going to know about your show?
Yeah. And marketing was also a little bit different then, but still people do that now. Enormous stress, huge cost. You actually can lose a bit of like the stand-up. I'm sure when you're on stage, you get into the moment. But is it such like fight or flight and fear of, am I actually going to get people to the shows?
I always really struggled with the fact that you stand on the street and you hand someone a flyer and you say, please, and you lower yourself beneath them because you need them. And then an hour and a half later, you're meant to walk out on front of them in a stage higher than them, amplified, louder than them, and suddenly change that status relationship convincingly. I hate that.
It's a very interesting game, and it goes like what we were talking to at the start of like self-promotion and stuff like that. But I can see how
You can see, right? It doesn't work.
It makes me feel anxious.
Yeah, and as somebody whose performance style, certainly in the beginning, I think now I've got a bit more of the Tom Gleason's about me, which is as in come out and say non-verbally, I don't care what you think of me, right? I know how to do that a bit more. My whole persona in the first few years was self-effacing, humble and everything, and it's already a really difficult balance to walk, to be amplified and half a metre higher than them and the only one talking, but still pull the look, I can't believe where I found myself, I'm such a silly little thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's already a really tricky balance if you then add to it that half those people are there because you begged them an hour ago to come. Then how do you pull off that trick?
It's amazing. Like, I know I'm a bit more involved, but there's so many factors just to consider of like how you're going to present yourself, especially at the start. And we could speak about that for ages. But I've never thought about like the status shift. And I know that comedians are very aware of status on stage. It doesn't mean that they go out in their day-to-day life and be like, buy me a coffee. It just means it's just building a relationship with the audience. But why I love this story is, and we're probably skimming, there's probably some other enormous stress, and especially money as well. But
I mean, the biggest stress is the looming public shaming of heading home a failure.
in what regard?
Nobody came.
Yep.
The end.
Yep. And so this is why I love this story. So get prepared. So when, I've had an American comedian, just to put into perspective, if people are new to this chat, he would do sellout shows in America and probably thousands, like quite often. Then he said occasionally he gets shows of like 10. And this is a very well-established comedian. And it kind of like blows my mind. He's probably been doing this for like 20-something years. It's just that happens. So I just want people to be aware of that. But especially, given all the variables we've spoken about, this is why I'm so impressed. This is the story, everyone. I hope they're excited. It's very easy to want to give up. You probably don't make money on 6 people. The ego can hit us because we want, and I think it was like 120 person venue. I could be wrong.
This is the same year I did Edinburgh.
Yeah.
I did a 120 seater in Melbourne, and it was just
Melbourne. Okay.
And it's the way the chips fell. When you're trying to find a venue and they haven't found someone to fill this venue, and it's clearly too big for you. And it's a terrible time slot. Not terrible, but like 6 p.m. and 120 seater.
Yeah, 6
Not in the centre of town.
Yep.
And nobody knows who you are. So performing a 6. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I might be getting Edinburgh and Melbourne wrong then, but just correct.
It was the same show.
Yep.
And in the midst of performing to a handful of people in a 120-seater in Melbourne, somehow I got offered a similarly impractical time slot and venue in Edinburgh. And it's funny to look back on it, and you would advise anyone else not to take it, and yet I took it.
But we'll get into that. But I think that's what can kind of make or break a comedian, in the sense of you learn a lot.
Yeah,
you're learning so much, and I'd love you to expand on that in a second. But now I might be getting Edinburgh and Melbourne wrong, but just correct me if I'm wrong. There's 6 people going to a show, not that many people, ego-wise. You also want to, you can reevaluate your career and your life and confidence, all of these things every single comedian and human goes through. And that can be really scary. Oh, do I even want to do this show? Is it worth it? But the moral is you never know who's watching, because I know in one of these shows you got a huge amount of opportunities. I have in my notes, I think managers or agents came to watch you. You got offered Rove. And I think that's such a beautiful story, because we've spoken about all of these hardships, the anxiety-stricken moments. You could give up. You could just be fuck the audience. But you still went out, didn't give up. And this actually has helped set up your career to even now. Not saying that it wouldn't have happened that way, but
yeah, I wonder what would have happened if I didn't do that. But yes, I think management and producers in particular, if they see you accept the struggle and turn up anyway, because nobody really wants to manage or produce somebody who folds easily. So I kind of almost reckon that for a manager to sit in a room where there's only a handful of other people and see you, like I said, let's see you just turn up for it anyway. I guess that's if they can see that there's some quality of writing or some interesting ideas there, and that you will follow through in adversity, I guess it's a I guess they know that they're onto somebody who they can actually put their money behind.
And I think it's a extremely important lesson. I'm speaking out loud for me, and hopefully it resonates for other people, is every single person will have challenges and adversity in their life, unfortunately or fortunately, depends how you want to see it. And, even that stand-up comedian that's been dominating for 5 years, and then for whatever reason, there's just a bit of low periods of no laughs. What I've always find so amazing is that when people can overcome those adversities and use them from learning experiences. And so it shows to me that you never know who's watching, and that if you put in effort and you've kind of got that mindset, something will happen. It might not happen in an extreme example like that, but it's such a nice lesson to know that you never know who's watching, but in a positive way. Not there's some creep outside that's who's watching. But, you went through these, let's just call them struggles, if you want to call it that. You showed up, and just showing up can be so hard. Because even going to gym, you said you go for runs. I'm sure there's times you don't want to go for a run, you go for a run.
Did I tell you I go for runs?
You mentioned that you went for a run. But
I do go for runs. Yeah. Sorry, continue. I'm just man, you're on top of things.
Yeah, I hear everything. And I think that is so awesome. When I heard this story, I was that is crazy. I just all of those situations, and then something inverted commas good from it. Even if you didn't get the managers and all of the rep, you still learnt a lot. And I heard you talk about the experience, and it definitely would have made you a better performer. But you never know who's watching.
Yeah. We touched on this way back at the start of our chat, that just exposing yourself to challenge and failure.
Yeah.
And then continuing to turn up. The more you do it, you're exercising a muscle, and that muscle is the ability to withstand a challenging job. Every time you do it, you get better at it, and it looks like what it looks like is you can keep smiling through it, and you're not bursting into tears in the fetal position at the end of it. You're just oh, I know those jobs. They're the hard ones. Here I am again at another hard one. The more you do, the better you are at doing it. And that's honestly where you make a living. You don't make a living in the easy ones. You make a living by being the person who can survive the hard ones.
That is such a great perspective. Do you reflect on this? Like, because you've had good gigs, bad gigs, all of.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's that's what makes a career, being someone who can do the hardest bits, right?
I think that's so empowering, and I'll give the exact opposite example, but of how it relates to you. As I've said 200 times already, I used to be an accountant, and I had no resilience for it because I hated it. And some people, I was definitely told that I was a failure and I need to give it up, which I've done the work. I'm fine. I know you gave me like that sad face. I'm so happy I had that experience. I needed that. I needed to go through that. It's informed everything since. And at the time you do like think, oh, you're a failure or what, but I just did not want to do it. It was like destroying my soul. And I'm so happy that I went through that because I didn't want to do it. But now, like with screenwriting, for example.
Oh, the hard moments. You're like, but it's not accounting.
Yeah, exactly.
What a great mantra.
Yeah, it's not accounting.
I feel like we who haven't even done accounting could occasionally just use that one. Well, at least it's not accounting.
Yes, and I do have the odd friends that like that. It's not for me. I just want to say that.
Oh my gosh, no, it is. I almost reckon I have this suspicion that I might have been all right at it. I'm not. My accountant is an angel, and I'm a torturous client. But I actually was great at maths, and You
studied occupational therapy, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was really, really, really good at maths, but I didn't want to do anything with the maths.
Yeah.
So I don't, what do you do with it? I feel like at school, the humanities were my weakest.
Oh, interesting.
And I was really good at calculus and physics, like anything that was just sort of pure and neat and tidy. That's what I was good at. And I certainly was not strong at like writing an essay. I was not good at persuasive language. I wasn't. So, and here we are.
Isn't that crazy? Like, my text messages, if I don't write them well, my dad's like, you're a screenwriter. How can you write like this? Mm-hmm. Or it is all coming from love. Or I would never have said that I was strong. Like I wouldn't be able to write a book where it's like Shakespearean, you know what I mean? Like a lot of description.
He wrote plays, not books, just.
Yeah. Wow, I'm learning so much. I do that. But you know what I mean? Like when you see a really good author and you're like, wow, I can never write that.
Isn't it amazing when you see someone, you're like, what magic? How can somebody
How do you know words?
Yeah.
But from screenwriting, and it's still similar-ish like to stand-up, you can like throw in the fancy words, but it's not like that essay. Like screenwriting is a completely different type of writing to writing a book.
I feel like it is actually quite mathematical, and certainly when I'm writing stand-up, I feel like a deep mathematical rhythm to it or something. And I don't know if I don't think we've got time for this. But I do, there's something like when the beats are right.
Yeah, like a formula.
Yeah, but it'd be terrible to call it formulaic. You're trying to sniff out the rhythm. You're not like, I don't know.
Is it kind of
like building Lego, but it just feels like there's a mathematical logic when it's right, and I can't explain it any more than that.
It's like the Matrix. You can see the ones and zeros. Like you completely understand it. But it's also like kind of know the rules to break the rules. Like you understand what the structure of like a joke and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you put your spin on it.
Yeah. Okay, we could waste a lot of time doing that. Let's get back to you and being a failed accountant.
Essentially, like going through that, I'm glad that I didn't have. I don't know if it's the emotional resilience. I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. But now, I just suddenly yelled. And this is a bit fresh, but maybe I'll use this example because, if I speak about these topics, then if my guests speak about these topics, then I should be able to. So I've been doing like writing, for example, and I've been doing like with a production company a script. I'm okay. Just you're giving me a worried look.
Oh, sorry, no, my face. I've got resting worried face.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And so it's been going on for a while, and I don't know how much I can say, but let's just say it wasn't a match. And so they retracted their offer, which would have been the first show that I've created. And a part of me was very upset. This just happened last night. But then like literally I was like, straight, you know what? On to the next one. And it's not me bypassing, like I felt the emotions. I know that what I've got is good. I've got a lot of scripts. I've gotten very good feedback. I've won awards. Not won awards, I've won a writing competition. But if I didn't have the accounting, I think I would have been a wreck and maybe even cancelled this like podcast, for example. But I was able to, in a very short amount of time, which I'm very proud of myself.
Feel the feeling.
Fear the feeling, which I did.
Turn
around and go, you know what? That was not a match. Like, who am I kidding? I just wanted to have my own TV show. I'm still going to get my own TV show. It's just going to have to come around through another way. But if I didn't have potentially these failures or these accounting or these jobs that I hated, I wouldn't have built that resilience for what I do now, because I'm not sure the right word is confident. I know what I've got. I know what I'm about. I know what I like. I know what I enjoy. That's not going to pivot me in a different direction.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, you
Doesn't mean I'm not going to improve.
You don't need me to talk you through this because you've already worked through this. But getting to the point, getting as far as you got is so much further than a lot of people get.
Yep.
And it's almost like you're going to have to get that far 10 times to get that one extra little bit. Like you're going to have to get perilously close to greenlit so many times before because plenty of people don't get that perilously close. They get turned away way earlier. So you're going to, I mean, this, but we have to get really good at realizing that getting close is a success too.
Agreed. And I'm not saying that as a pity story. I'm just showing.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's not like I'm the best. It's more to just say like I didn't get an outcome. I'm actually like genuinely like happy it didn't happen. I won't say more to that because it was not the right. I just won't dive into it too much. I was not after like like when you have like a near death experience and you see all of the things like, whoa, how did I miss out on all of that stuff?
Okay, yeah.
So I genuinely, I don't know if happy's the right word, but I'm maybe relieved in a sense because it wouldn't have been.
You're at peace with it.
Yeah. Very nice. But the reason I say that is like going back to, I had these experiences, I don't want to harp on this too much, where perhaps I would have been more of a wreck, but now like I've put in a lot of work on myself, got a lot more work to be done. Working on my craft doesn't mean I'm the best. I've still got work to do. And it's like, right, let's go. I like what I'm doing. And I think I forget how we got onto this, but.
Oh man, I couldn't, don't ask me.
Yeah. But anyway.
That's a good conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you stray too far from the notes.
Yes, I'm actually not referring to notes.
No, I haven't seen you look at them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a few points which I just find very interesting. But, we're talking about Edinburgh and we'll see if we can finish this point. That you never know who's watching. You went through kind of the ringer of emotions and that you showed up, and just showing up is a lot. And there was another point you said, you said this with me. Like as an actor, for example, and I know that you've like done that stuff as well, or even when you're like going for like auditions for other roles, just being, I know that you don't get money for it, but isn't like there could be hundreds of people going for a role. And if you're like in the top 3 or they like get you there, that's a huge win. And a lot of people, especially actors, and it works for all fields, because, pardon me, they're not getting money from it. They might feel that. And I think that can be, pardon me, a bit of it can cloud our judgment. Money's not the be all. Like you've kind of proven yourself, you're getting there. You're not bad. Like you can actually, there's something there. I'd like to know kind of like your take on that, because you said that quite wisely.
Did I? Oh, well, I can't. I don't remember. That was old me. That was 2 minutes ago me. I don't think I could repeat that. But, I mean, it's tricky because, of course, getting the job.
You want the job.
You want a job, and you do want the money, because otherwise it's not a career. It's a hobby. And but yes, but yeah, you've got to accept that, like, you're not going to get everything, and so part of the roundabout that you're on is getting one in every you know, like one in every however many,
Like actors
and then
like
a whole
100.
lot of close calls. And so every, you know, like your close calls, you should just sort of, you know, like tally them on the wall like a prisoner, because it's like, yeah, every close call is part of a successful career.
Very interesting. Do you have, I know we spoke about the Great Australian Bake Off, like a morning process. When things don't go to plan, I know you kind of got the experience. Do you do anything to kind of just say like, thank you, I've processed, but on to the next one?
Yeah. What do I do? I don't know. I wonder if my process is good. I'm pretty quick to just look on to the next thing. You know, like kick the can out of my path and keep walking. Like I'm pretty good at that, but I don't know if maybe I'm not allowing myself to feel the feelings enough. I have occasionally been really wrecked by missing something. And so I think that might be partly because you do accidentally allow yourself to picture yourself doing it too much, too far into the future.
Yeah.
And to imagine what you will leverage off it. You know, like as in if you colour in the picture too much, then it's going to hurt more to lose it. So I may have a few self-protection kind of strategies in play where I'm like, I don't allow myself to dream too much about the thing that I might get. Maybe I'm doing myself a disservice. Maybe it'd be lovely to allow myself to want something. Sometimes I worry that I don't let myself want anything too much because I don't want to be too badly hurt when it goes away. I think that's been something I've done my whole life and in other areas as well. So I wonder is it possible that I'm living a slightly greyer life because of those protective strategies I've got around not letting myself care too much?
It's a very interesting question. I do this, everyone on the podcast does this, and I have no idea what the answer is because just from an acting side, like I don't know what the ratio is, but it's like less than 1 in 100 or more, whatever. And it's just so interesting because, you know, obviously we if we're doing something that we want to like imagine it, but it's that line of, are we getting too lost away
am I getting too invested?
Yeah.
In this, and if I can only see, and I think it's actually why people have struggled with breakups as well, because their view of themselves next year is in that relationship, and that has been taken from them.
Yep.
And so, you know, like if you really invest and you can only see a future version of yourself that looks like that, and then somebody else takes that away from you, it really hurts. It makes you feel stolen from and humiliated.
That is such a good point because we all define ourselves as certain things. And can't think of a great example, but when you're not that thing, that can destroy you. Like one of my friends actually, he, for whatever reason, he left similar to accounting. And when he wasn't in accounting, he didn't know who he was. And that was like, he obviously found that very hard to cope with. And yeah, that's really interesting. He did, like he had a version of his own. He was that guy, and then he wasn't that guy.
And then he wasn't that guy. So interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really, gosh, it's really got me thinking, you know, like, should I want things more? I certainly, like, I went through a few, I feel like we've been very benign so far, and I'm going to force myself to dig deeper. I went through a few years I live in Melbourne, and the biggest comedy festival is the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
Which is coming up.
And it is coming up. This better go out before it.
It will.
I'm joking.
But it will.
Put it out whenever you want.
Yeah, no, it will.
This is not promotion. This is just two best friends that just met having a great chat.
And we were talking about gardens and stuff before.
And we were talking about gardens.
Yeah.
I went through a bit of a, like if you talk about acts having heat, I went through a really cold phase in my relationship with Comedy Festival. So like there's an all-women lineup called Up Front, which I'd just gotten every year, and then I stopped getting it. But, you know, like as in I'd bump into friends and they're like, see you at Up Front, and I'd have to be like, I don't have that gig anymore.
Interesting.
Stop getting the gala, which is, you know, like the big...
Yeah.
That's the gala's a massive,
it helps sell badge. A lot of tickets.
It helps sell tickets, but it's also this wonderful opportunity to do a massive, massive audience with a whole lot of great friends and peers, and like it's an absolute esteem boost.
Yep.
Stop getting offers of the hi-fi bar, and so I just no longer was getting cast in anything. And it's a really clear message that I didn't dwell on, but it means that the power brokers at the Melbourne Comedy Festival consider your voice not worthy of inclusion in their events. I mean, of course it is. Others are more interesting than you. That's clearly.
Well, they might think that. It doesn't mean the population.
I know. Doesn't mean everyone thinks that, but certainly the people with the most power over your life for this month of your life disregard what you're offering.
Yep.
And for those years, I mean, you've got two choices. You can be angry that they don't believe in you, or you can accept that you are not that you are not an interesting enough comedian for that event. So you have to, what do you pick? And so it's a really interesting, like it is much better for my mental health to go, I'm a good working comic, I'm not special enough this year. That's the best way to do it. It is not helpful to get angry and go, I should be there.
Yep.
So I think I tend to, I tend to make that choice a lot. And sometimes I think, should I be allowing myself to want that thing? But I just am really good at stopping myself from wanting something I can't have. And I came back into favour for a few years, got a few, and I feel like I can feel like it's slipping this year. Terrible promo for the Comedy Festival to talk like that. If you are truly putting this podcast out before the Comedy Festival and I'm experiencing doubt, I feel like my show's the best show I've ever written, but I also can sense their interest in me waning again.
So I will add to that. Regardless of what you or they might think, it has nothing to do with your shows. Like, you're hilarious, the proof's in the pudding. And like, that's just, to me, that's your process is your process. That's the right process. There's always like a group of whatever people, they will have their own agendas. I personally think, and it's your process, that even if they don't like you, and they do like you because they've got you there, they're looking at things that we will probably never understand. Like, I've had horrible examples, not in this example, where they're like, oh, we've already got a woman that's similar to this one. Stupid.
Totally. And I'm quite a blank slate. You know what I mean? I don't have anything particularly remarkable or noteworthy about me, and in many ways that's my strength. Ooh. But in terms of getting on a lineup, I am easily overlooked.
Can we talk about that? Because I had to hear on the podcast a Sydney-based comedian.
Yeah.
And in my mind, he's super successful, and even if one's not super successful, he's whatever. That was a stupid way of saying it. A very successful comedian. I think he's a great human. He's funny. The proof's in the pudding. He's done so much stuff like you. He's never been on at the gala. And he viewed that, the gala. And he views that, and we spoke about it, he viewed that as a huge failure, that he never got on, but he's still doing sellout shows. He's done movies and TV shows, but the people to be never put him in. But there's just a few factors which you're aware of, like marketability. Sometimes if someone, like, I'm just making this up, if there's like a comedian that's obsessed with guitars, we can market him as guitars, and that's what's going on now. To me, it's not, and I'm not in the industry, everyone's process is different. To me, it comes in as potentially a marketing ploy, or just sometimes they're not super thought out. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll never know. There's so many different factors. And so the conclusion that we kind of came through with to here was, it did not mean he's not a good comedian. The proof's in the pudding. He's been doing this for a long time. He gets a lot of people to see his shows. He's very upset by it, and I completely understand why. It's a very nice gig to have, as you know. But the gatekeepers, they're not the ones, like, he will still go on and still thrive. He's still upset, he still wants to be on it, and I hope they're listening and they get both of you on. But at the end of the day, it's just a few people. Comedy is so subjective. And yes, you've been on, I wouldn't
think of it like you've been on, you no longer, I know you didn't say this, you might not be good enough or whatever. There's so many ridiculous factors. Someone else was also on the podcast. I think they're on and then they cut them. But
cut them from the broadcast.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah.
I know that thing.
And I don't think that is actually necessarily a comedy thing. I think there's other factors, but whether it's marketing or whatever, and people see marketing in a different way. So I'm not taking away from your process and the feeling there. I'm just saying it's a group of some people. They're not, anyway.
I know.
It doesn't mean don't feel and go through it.
Yeah. And I know it's just one group of people, but it's
a nice gig.
But Melbourne Comedy Festival for a month of the year is our mummy and daddy, and mummy and daddy are not taking us on the excursion this year.
Interesting. So what's kind of like the takeaway from this experience?
Of not being included?
Yeah.
Well, do you know, I don't even, at point of recording, I mean, I don't even know that I'm not. Like, it could end up being a good year for me again.
Gotcha.
No, there's been, and some people have gotten offers for it. At this point, some people have gotten offers for it. So I know I'm certainly not on the top of the list.
Yep.
I have a feeling.
Yep.
You know, I have a feeling that my year, like I was getting moderator at the Great Debate, and I was getting all the things for a few years, and I think that my little moment in the sun's gone. What's the takeaway from it? I don't know. I think maybe it's easier now that I've been through a few popularity cycles.
Can you expand on that? Because you mentioned at the very start of the podcast, like you felt you'd never been hot or on fire.
Yeah, like there was a bit of buzz around me when I first entered the marketplace. You know, when I was a brand new comedian that showed promise.
Yep.
And so I had a really wonderful first few years. You know, and if I have any regrets, it's not capitalizing better on that strong start. But I was just a brand new dum-dum. You know, like I feel like I've only learnt how to write a show eventually. You know, like I didn't grind. I just had a really easy ascension in the first few years. And then, as I described it to my friend Sammy J yesterday, and then a 15-year-long plateau. And then, so I guess cycling in and out of popularity with the Melbourne Comedy Festival, I think this time round it's more of a, well, I mean, I don't like it. And I feel like when my mates on my WhatsApp support group were getting offers, I feel like I was cranky that week.
Yep.
I was running in a new show at Perth Fringe, and it's just that little bit harder to walk onto stage going, oh, you're on the wane again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's some real mind games that you're playing with yourself to try and get around the ego blow of knowing. But you know also rationally with your head, you know it's just a small group of people. You know it doesn't necessarily mean anything. I know that I have value beyond whether or not I'm on the gala.
Nice, yeah.
But also stand-up is a confidence game. Like we talked about before, I'm meant to walk out there with the status, with enough confidence to be like, I should be the only one of these people speaking for an hour. That's a ridiculous, that's a preposterous suggestion that only one person should talk for an hour out of all of those people who have plenty to say. So it's a confidence game and you need a lot. And when you get little hits like, when you get little hits like losing something that you did want, it's really hard to strut on stage that night.
Yep. I understand what you're saying, and I think it's very empowering to understand. Also, cycles.
Cycles, yeah.
Every single person goes through cycles. This is an industry where you see them more. Every single big name that someone can think of has had highs and lows. Big actors can be in like 3 of the biggest movies and then get shit all for like 10 years. I've seen so much of this on this podcast. Unfortunately, it's the name of the game. It's not the end for you. It's just going to bring you back to where wherever you want to be. So I just want to put that out there, and I think that you're hilarious and you're going to sell a lot of tickets and people are going to appreciate it regardless if you're on or not. And we're putting that out there as well. Let's prove them all wrong, everyone.
Okay, no, not even prove them wrong. Let's disregard what they think of us.
That is a great correction. And I think that's like healthy. I think you've gone through, but I think, you've gone through it and you've been like honest with yourself. And I think that's the only way that we can kind of go about it. So good job. And then
Thanks, mate.
And in turn, actually,
you truly are a 5 wisdom teeth guy.
I'm using that for promotions. Okay, so I reckon what we're going to do now to wrap up the podcast is to do a quick rapid fire segment. And the first thing that springs to mind, unless you need to think about it. So we all good to go?
Okay.
Let's see if I can just wrap up anything. Okay.
No, go on. What?
I just need to preface this. I know you only did, this is part of the rapid fire stuff.
Is it?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like it yet.
No, it is.
But that's because I'm interrupting. Go on. Sorry.
No. It's just, okay. Rapid fire segment, we're commencing. Let's go. Please tell me about your very short stint as a sex operator.
Phone sex line. Yeah.
Phone sex line, yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the, I can't even, adult phone lines. I can't even remember what the proper term was, but a friend of mine was doing it. A friend of mine, fellow drama student.
Yep.
Was doing it. She did it for much longer than me, and she was mentally suited to it. And it certainly had its benefit. Like she's just better at letting it roll off her. It had benefits, the flexibility of it. Like it's a turn up in your track pants and sit in a booth kind of job.
Yep.
And certainly you get to use your imagination. I only did it for 3 weeks. I wasn't bad at it, but it also wasn't for me. I think maybe I took on a bit too much from it. I didn't like the way I was being spoken to sometimes. Not as in I'm a very compliant person naturally, and I want to do a good job. And I think that's probably problematic when a job will just keep asking more and more from you.
Did they give you like script? Do they teach you like what to say?
Yeah, it was. I went in with one of the girls who was one of their good ones, and got to sit in the corner of her room while she talked and sort of made facial expressions to me. Like as in, and he got, and look what I'm going to do now, and then she'd say a thing, and so I definitely was. I spent an afternoon watching others at work, but then it's just like single swim, and I was perfectly fine at it, but I wasn't coming away from the job feeling energized. I was feeling very depleted by it.
Yeah, and you're probably told to spend as long as on the phone.
Yeah, lots of little tricks and things to make, like to get the money.
Yeah.
Anyway, fine, really good, and I'm like halfway through writing a show based on that experience.
That is so great.
I know 3 weeks and I think I can write a show about. No, but I've got this great idea that's a non-narrative podcast. Can't sell it for the life of me. Doesn't matter. It has to be a podcast because it's about the security recordings. So it's basically, it doesn't matter, but it's not a smutty show. It's actually about the day-to-day interactions of the entirely female staff that work there who don't talk to, like as in it's the last thing they want to talk about. They're talking about their lives.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
But it's just sound captured, but with all of the actual smutty conversations taken out.
I think that's awesome. Great idea.
Okay, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Right? So nobody's interested yet.
No,
I mean, really if I put
think
more of the actual, if I put more penis and vagina in, maybe it'd sell. But I don't want to. That's not the idea.
I understand what you're saying. It's not about that. Great idea.
Okay, thanks. That was not rapid fire. I'm so sorry.
No. You've got nothing to apologize. I forgot to say we got a no sorry rule. Just last thing to wrap up as well within the rapid fire segment. You talked about the not wanting, but then when you like get a job, do you allow yourself to like want it and enjoy it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then
you just flick the switch and you're like, look at me doing this awesome thing.
Yes. Okay.
Otherwise, what's a point?
Yep.
If you don't like lie around in the goodness of the job like it's a, bed covered in rose petals, what's the point if you don't love that you got it?
That is I'm glad that I brought that up because that's amazing that we all need. I'll just ask the last three.
Yeah, do it.
Do you speak Japanese?
Oh, I started learning it, but only because my kids were learning it at primary school, and I wanted to feel like I was better than them at everything. I loved it. I was doing it on Duolingo. It is a long road though, because you have to learn all of the characters first. So true. No, I don't speak Japanese, but I was doing it for a while. And then after all of my incredibly passionate studies, the school swapped to Spanish. Oh, for goodness sake. So now I've got to start from scratch in a new language.
Well,
or let my children be better than me at something.
No, we're not going to allow that. We're not going to allow. We'll take them out of school. What does sewing do for your soul?
Oh, I just picked up my sewing machine and overlocker from the service. They've been gone for 3 weeks, and I missed having them in the house.
It's very cute.
What does it do? I don't know. I don't know why I like it so much. But I mentioned Sammy J. I had lunch with Sammy J yesterday, and we were both talking about how much we love follies. So the idea of putting a lot of time and or money into something that is almost pointless, like just that's a folly. Like it's not, nobody needs it. There's no deadline on it. People probably prefer that you didn't sew them anything. And yet, so doing a sewing project, gosh, I love it. And I'm really good at it. For somebody that doesn't do it professionally.
I think that's awesome.
It makes me so happy. I get into the flow state. I am I'm like walking on air at the end of a day of sewing, and I probably do it once every 6 months because my life is very busy.
We have to do a part 2, just hearing the flow state. I'd love to hear your perspective on it. But what's your next big dream or goal? I can't choose. I want to do a bigger venue. I want to feel like I've got a show worthy of entertaining more people at once. And every time I do a show, it's not quite there. And I wonder if this year I'll finally back my own show. Ooh. Enough
to be like, yeah, this one deserves to sell out.
And it will. Everyone help out. I think it's very exciting. Any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
I guess the way I'd frame that advice is your life can be 80 years spent facing the same direction, or it can be like an amazing textured bumpy road of lots of twists and turns. And I just think for a moment of discomfort and fear, it's worth it because you've added an incredible new experience to your bag of memories.
That is such a good answer. I love that. Last question before I ask how people can follow you and check out your shows. What is the one question I should have asked you?
Where's your tooth? No. What is the one question you should have asked me? What does my family think of me doing comedy?
What does your parents?
Yeah, I don't know. We can't do that one quickly. They're really supportive, but
they
it's
still
not.
Say go back to gardening or occupational therapy.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
They couldn't. They actually couldn't be lovelier about it. It wasn't a fight, but it took. I think I frightened them for a really long time.
Yep, that's very.
They just wanted me to be safe, and it looked very unsafe for a very long time.
And now at the end, they're very supportive. They're happy, and it's worked out for the best.
Mate, I can still see my mum worried.
People still say that.
Your show wasn't sold out tonight. Will there be more tomorrow? Oh no, I don't want to.
100 people.
It's enough that I'm worried. Please don't be worried.
Yeah, parents are funny. They just want us to be safe.
Nah, she's the best.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I know that you're not great with socials, but how can people follow you?
Oh, I would love you to, because I put my heart into the content that I send to my management to post anonymously. No, but it's true. So
Yep.
I think I'm the Claire Hooper. I imagine I've forgotten. The Claire Hooper on
Yep.
Instagram, and I'm on Facebook.
Yep.
And I do, I've got show dates coming up and that sort of thing.
Should people go to the Token website or?
Yeah, do you know what? At the risk of sending my audience to other people as well, there's the comedy.com.au website, which lists my shows and a bunch of other really good comedians as well.
Yeah, awesome. We will upload all of that in the episode notes below so people can check it out. Thank you so much. I love you, and you've got such a brilliant mindset around life. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much
and
for
thank
having
you
me.
for the gardening advice as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, anytime. Send me photos of how it goes.
I will. Thank you.
Wow, I absolutely love the story that Claire shares where earlier in her career at a particular gig, the audience numbers were less than desirable. Claire could have cancelled these shows or even not shown up. But despite this, Claire decided that the show must go on. Little did she know that there were various agents, managers and reps in the audience, and the rest is history. Her profound wisdom shines through where she explains that careers aren't necessarily made from the good gigs, but pushing through the bad gigs, as well as simply showing up when we may not necessarily want to. Claire also talks about the ability to withstand a challenging job and keep your head up high no matter what is thrown your way. Ultimately, through Claire's determination and work ethic, this experience has helped set her up for her career to date. In fact, it seemed that these reps not only liked Claire because of her content, but her ability to face the storm, so to speak, and they knew she would be a great asset to have on the team. My takeaway is that despite a situation not going to plan, showing up goes a long way. In fact, you never know who's watching. So before we go, I'll leave you with this epic quote. Success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. Winston Churchill.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.